right, good evening, everyone. Fred Shropshire here and Vanessa Rufus. We are here. Welcome to all of our Facebook viewers and our WCNC.com viewers. We're talking about the Olympics. We're talking about the opening ceremonies. We're talking about the sights and sounds that we've been anticipating here, I feel like, for several years because of everything that's happened globally. But just an amazing opening ceremony so far to kick off our Winter Olympics in Beijing.
Yeah, this has been so fun to watch. Obviously, a round of folks got to see it at 6:30 in the morning today, and there is another round of folks watching it right now. Maybe even some folks watching it for a second time in a row.
I could see why too, actually. I could see why you would watch it.
It's totally entertaining. I love to see this Parade of Nations. By the way, that's underway right now. I think, we're watching Italy come in with their. Now, I saw these were supposed to be capes, but they look like ponchos, to be honest. But we'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, it's just been so fun to watch this Parade of Nations underway and really just kind of like the spectacle and the technology that we've seen on display during this opening ceremony. It's been really cool, Fred.
It's been so cool. This has been a spectacular show. The same guy who choreographed the opening ceremony for the Summer Olympics in Beijing. By the way, Beijing, or China, I should say, the only nation in the world to host both the Winter and Summer Olympics in the same city. So that's one thing. But the interesting thing is the same choreographer who was responsible for what was lauded and still probably will be lauded as the greatest opening ceremony in terms of the technology that we saw and the effects, also did this opening ceremony as well. All of the pyrotechnics and the LED lights and I think it was like 40,000 LED modules that they used for this thing. Amazing sights.
Yeah, indeed. And so for folks who aren't quite familiar with where this is all taking place, so this is the Beijing National Stadium, and it's also called the Bird's Nest. And so this was something that we saw built for the 2008 Summer Olympics. So Fred, as you mentioned, hosting Summer Olympics, and then eventually, as we see now, Winter Olympics. It's hosted athletics and football. It hosted the opening and closing ceremonies in 2008. And then, of course, here we see 2022, the Winter Olympics, setting a wonderful stage here. It was transformed with ice sculptures. And so obviously, as you can see, kind of decked out to give the winter theme as we would expect for the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, it's an architectural marvel, really. You saw the capacity there said 80,000. Originally, it was supposed to be 100,000, but they had to do all kinds of things as they were making adjustments with piping, like in the summertime, the pipes that run under this thing. It sits out the hot air to make sure it's cool. And in the wintertime, it does the opposite. It cools the whole stadium. It's a marvel to see.
I think probably cooling the stadium a good idea, since we've been seeing, as you would expect, a lot of winter themed gear. So like heavier coats and scarves and things like that. So obviously want to make sure folks are comfortable as they're doing this parade. But I've just been really like blown away by, like we mentioned, the technology. And I know, Fred, you alluded to this, the LED floor. I mean, that's something else. I mean, it's like watching like a hologram.
It is. And a lot of it is, I think you were able to reach like an 8K resolution with all of the effects that we saw there. You can see there about 3,000 performers featured in this entire thing. And it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of technology and what the whole theme was with this whole thing. The colors, I mean, they kept with the national pride of China, and just, I mean, the whole thing. And the I don't even know what you call those things that all the performers were swinging back and forth, and there was like it was like some explosion that was supposed to, and this is what I've read, it was supposed to like be, I guess, an explosion of seed, like across, like basically across the earth, something to that effect. But it's just remarkable. I mean, mind blowing that they can achieve this kind of visual with this technology.
I think the coolest thing that I saw, kind of on the tech side, was when they had that big ice cube that rose. like it rose out of the floor,
Uh-huh.
and then it revealed the Olympic rings, and
Yeah, yeah.
that
It's
was
supposed to
pretty
be.
neat to me.
Yeah, it's like it's supposed to be a snowflake, I believe. I think that was supposed to emulate some kind of snowflake. And anyway, I mean, who thinks of this? Like I said, the same man who was able to pull off what we saw in 2008 Summer Games in Beijing.
I mean, we've come a long way, with the presentation of these ceremonies. I mean, I even think back to, the summer games, and what was it, like drones?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
where we're to a point where we have drones that are part of these spectacles, and it's just magnificent. You know,
It's amazing. It's amazing that they're able to um, do all of that and to, I mean, gosh, to coordinate actual humans, right, with all of the
Mhm.
technology, the lighting, the pyrotechnics, the music. I mean, you think about all that has to go into this, all that has to be coordinated, and it's remarkable that they
Yeah.
can pull it off. Especially too, like the other thing too, amazing about this particular performance is that it was actually smaller. It was shorter in
Yeah.
time than the last performance that was performed in that stadium. I think roughly maybe an hour and a half is what you saw the actual performance. Those 3,000 performers, only around a fifth of the total cast. You think about that. 3,000
Mhm.
performers, a fifth of the total cast of what we saw in the 2008 games, still able to pull off this marble.
Yeah, we know that COVID has changed a lot of things, not just for the world, but everything that is entailed with the world, right? So like
Yeah.
our daily lives, all the way up to these big major events that, kind of like what you alluded to, Fred, people wait for years. They
Yep.
train for, they plan for, they get pumped up for, and you kind of have to pivot with what COVID throws your way. So we're already starting to see that pivoting happen. Um, if you want to talk about the U.S. flag bearers, and
Oh
actually
yeah.
the changes that we saw have to take place because of COVID, with who
Oh
carried the
yeah.
flags, with the
Oh
flag.
yeah. 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 And there you see them right there. Those flag bearers. Um, just a remarkable story there, Vanessa.
Yeah, John Schuster, and Brittany Bowe. Those are the flag bearers we see there up in the front in that picture, obviously carrying the flag. They've got a different outfit than their counterparts. So you could see walking behind them. But Brittany Bowe, who's a speed skater from Ocala, Florida, actually was a replacement. And she had to step in for Alana Myers Taylor, who's in isolation right now because she tested positive for COVID-19 after arriving in Beijing for the competition. So you can only imagine, the stress that some of these athletes are probably feeling, knowing that they're going to have to test on a daily basis for COVID-19, and you could potentially have things derailed with a bad test.
Yeah, yeah, and the time that they have to wait, to these games don't happen every year or every 2 years even. I mean, it's like every 4 years you're waiting to be in a position to represent, which makes it so special. Those and also just not only the honor too, but just the pageantry of what they're wearing too, like
Mm-hmm.
Team USA. Those uniforms that they're wearing that they parade out, yeah, those are Ralph Lauren designed all of basically what you see there, and from what we've learned, the material that these coats are made out of, it's an interesting technology. Well, first, it's recyclable. It's made of recyclable bottles, so just completely a different take there, and a message there to use that kind of material. And also, you said something about the technology of the material itself inside,
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa.
Yeah, there's like apparently like a fabric layer, and it's like a honeycomb, and apparently it doesn't use any batteries or wire technology to do this, but this honeycomb layer of fabric kind of expands and it contracts, and it all kind of depends on the temperature changes.
Mhm.
And I guess the point, I guess when Ralph Lauren was designing this item, was to make sure that they could wear this garment inside, outside, and it's supposed to be able to transition through 3 seasons and be comfortable, I guess, no matter where you're wearing the item. So that's pretty cool. I wish I could get some of that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a hot item. Collector's edition for sure for folks like us who are back here. And a lot of this, you see a lot of character and a lot of unique designs coming into this parade of nations as well. Team Mexico wearing their calavera there. You see, this
Yeah.
is these are the sugar skulls that you would see prominent during the Day of the Dead celebrations in Mexico as part of a cultural representation there. But just they're wearing the black pants and the sugar skulls, and there you have a photo of one of them, even with the flowers that she's wearing. This is a cultural expression for so many nations that are participating in these games.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that's probably one of, my favorite things about watching the Parade of Nations here is just seeing their different takes on the outfits. Like you said, it's definitely a way to express your culture and the nation that you're representing. And so, yeah, it's cool to see, what Mexico did. You see, for example, I alluded to this when we first got started because Italy was on there, but they had the Italian flag colors.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it kind of looks like a poncho. Does anyone agree with me? Um, but yeah, and like Team USA, just the red, white, and blue. I mean, so iconic. I mean,
Yeah, it's iconic, and these are the images that stay with us too, because you remember the last games, the Tongan guy who came out without the shirt on, and
who
I'm
could forget that?
who could forget that, right? We're still talking about it after all this time, right? But yeah, these are the images that stay with us, and it's the impression that's made. It's the pride that we see with these nations and their flags. I think we see France there,
Hmm.
and just you know they are representing their nations. They represent the elite not only of their nation but of the world in athletics, and it takes so much blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. And they want to represent, and they want to make a statement with how they walk out.
Certainly so. And something else, like I noticed too, as each country comes out, is I always like to see how many folks are part of the group.
Mhm. Yeah.
Some groups are bigger than others.
Switzerland there that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Team Switzerland looks like a nice size team. Of course, we know that nation is not the largest nation, but you're talking about the Winter Olympics here, and
Hmm.
this is their bread and butter. This is their wheelhouse here. So I
Yeah.
expect you expect them to be well represented
I mean,
in
you
these
mentioned
games.
you mentioned Tonga, and I don't know if we have a picture ready to go of the gentleman who walked for Tonga today. But anyways, just there was one, a lone Tongan
Oh yeah, just
walking.
one.
Yes, he was
We made a
shirtless.
huge splash.
We should mention, I guess, the other man who was just so well known for being shirtless and representing. He decided not to go because he is participating in humanitarian efforts.
Hmm.
So, you know, a big kudos to him, tip of the cap for thinking that this is where he needs to be there for his country in this way. So he is there helping. I'm looking at my notes here because what he's going to arrive in communications. Yeah. So last month's deadly volcano eruption and tsunami is what he's focusing his relief efforts on right now, rather
Yeah,
than.
and that's the thing that we got to keep in mind too, because these backstories with these athletes,
Yeah.
especially with Team USA. You'll find out a lot of that as we go through the next 16 days here in our coverage, because we have in our network our ozone reports and our shows, where we basically give you a behind the scenes look at the action of what's going on with these Winter Olympics, but also the athletes too. These are real folks who have, these sports that they do, they're able to perform at the highest level on the world stage, but they have lives, their moms, their dads, They're humanitarians. They are. They have this is just one dimension of what they do. And so you talk of that man and what he's doing right now. All of these athletes, have a pretty busy life and notable life outside of their sports that they're representing during these games.
Yeah, indeed. So, um, I guess I did want to quickly mention, since we talked about you, the 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 stress of being there in a COVID environment, as one of these athletes. It's just like another layer of something that they have to deal with. We talked about Alana Myers-Taylor, who is in isolation. I was actually able to find an update from our sister station in Atlanta, 11 Alive.
Mhm.
She's from Douglasville, Georgia. So um, for folks who, want to know what her fate could be, I mean, it sounds like she's isolating, as we mentioned. It's If she receives 2 negative PCR COVID tests, she
Mhm.
could be able to compete. And so she took one test yesterday and she was negative.
Okay.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
progress.
then she took another one and is still waiting for the results. So I'm certainly hoping for the best for her, because I hate to hear that when you have, let's see, she's among 3 U.S. bobsledders who tested positive. Also, athletes from Ukraine and Germany and Norway have had to step back and isolate because of COVID. I just, when you train so hard and for so long, and this is your moment, and you really want it, and then something like this could dash that. I hate to see that.
Yeah, and this is just the reality of what life is like around the globe right now. Everyone is dealing with this. This is why the protocols are what they are right now. Here we are, another Olympic Games. We had this same issue with the Summer Games, and with being postponed and having them, just this past summer. And here we are with the Winter Olympics into another year of this pandemic, and this is the reality. But our coverage of the Olympics will continue. We have much more on our network. We'll be talking a little bit about it during our newscast, and throughout the next 2 weeks, you can also catch all of the information that you would ever want to know about the backstories and the medal count and everything that you want to know about these Winter Olympic Games in Beijing. But be sure to tune in for our newscast tonight at 11.
We're
And
at 11 tonight.
11 tonight exactly, and we'll be keeping tabs on how these games turn out for you. Thank you
Yeah.
guys for joining us for this stream, and of course we'll be with you for the next couple of weeks just like this, talking about all things Winter Olympics.